Hello, hello, everyone. This is Dr. B from Steps to the Future, coming to you with another college and career conversations. I am so thrilled with our guest that we have this evening. Once we get to that part, I will definitely introduce you to my guest. But I just wanted to let you know, so this is coming up for me. This is coming up for travel season. Colleges are opening back up. Conferences are being held in person. So for the next 2 Mondays, you won't see me at the regular time. I'm not even sure if I'll be able to be there on Mondays as it is. Next Monday, I will be in Jacksonville, Florida, visiting Jacksonville University. And the evening is already jam packed. So I may or may not be able to be with you. Maybe I'll pre record something and show that. The following Monday, I will be in Philadelphia for the Independent Educational Consultants Association spring conference. I was going to say fall conference, spring conference. This is our first in-person conference since November 2019. So I'm looking forward to seeing colleagues and friends that I haven't seen since then because we only used to see each other during that time. So again, I am really looking forward to attending both of those events. So you may or may not see me, or there may be a recorded event. If it's recorded, I'll definitely put it in the events section so that you know that it's coming up. So as we get started, go ahead, go get your glass of water, your cup of juice, your tea, whatever it is that keeps you refreshed. So we can start in about 30 seconds. See you then. Hey, and we are back. And folks, before I forget, remember, always feel free to join in the conversation. Just go into the comment section, put your comment in. We'd love for you to join the conversation. For those of you that are watching this on the replay, definitely you can still comment and share this out. Those of you that are watching, share this out. And if you're here, let us know who you are. We'd like to know who's joining us this evening. So I am thrilled to bring on my guest this evening. This is Dr. Franklin Soares. And you guys know that, you hear me talk all the time. And you know that I'm a former teacher and that my whole teaching career was in the city of East Providence, Rhode Island. Franklin was one of my students. It is like a teacher's, oh, I don't know. It is like a teacher's, this is what makes teaching priceless. When you get to see your students as adults and you get to see who they've become. Because, when we're in the middle school or the high school, once students graduate, a lot of times you don't know what's going on in their lives. But I've been so fortunate to be able to still have conversations and still keep up with my students. So, Dr. Franklin Soares, welcome.
Welcome, Dr. Wilkerson. I'm so glad that you can invite me to this platform. And hello, everyone.
We are so thrilled to have you here. So, Franklin. So for folks, as I said, Franklin was one of my students, and I was telling him when we were in the before it started, that one of the things I remember about Franklin, he was the first student I ever had who said he wanted to be a meteorologist. I remember thinking, a meteorologist? Well, wow, that's different. And again, as he said, he's still interested in paying attention to weather. So Franklin, tell us about you. Tell us about your story. So tell us about why meteorology, and then how did that shift happen?
Yeah, so when I was at East Providence High, and even when I was growing up, I always liked weather. I liked the clouds. I liked to look at the sun. I liked to look at the moon. I wanted to know what was making things go around. And the water, the tides, tornadoes, hurricanes, all that kind of stuff that was happening in Rhode Island. And I said, what's going on? And so I've always had like a mathematic kind of science or STEM related kind of mindset. And then high school really kind of formed that kind of vision for me. And me and my cousin actually, we were looking at meteorology schools throughout the country. I do remember Penn State was one of my fondest places, and another school in Vermont was another place. And I picked Vermont, the school in Vermont, because there was a program with the New England Association of Colleges and Universities where if you went to a school in New England where your state didn't have the major, you can get it for free. I'm not free. You can get it for the same in-state tuition. I meant to say. I'm sorry. So what happened was I went to Vermont to go to school there. This was around 2001 when 9/11 happened. I'm very old, yes. So my first week of school was actually 9/11. It was very traumatic for me. Another thing is East Bronx is very diverse. When I was in high school, I had a lot of friends who identify as Black, white, obviously Cape Verdean, I'm Cape Verdean, so on and so forth. But I went to Vermont. I was the only Black male on the whole campus there of 1,000 students, and it was eye opening. There was things that happened that I wouldn't want to happen to anyone else, and so went to school, did physics and calculus and all those classes for meteorology, and then something happened my second year, which leads to what your answer was. And my professor at the school told me I wasn't fit for the program. And as a first gen student, first going to college, my mom, um, it's not her fault, my family, they didn't know how to support me. They just said, well, if you're going to go to college, you can do it. And so I had to learn how to do it very quickly, what to do. And I thought my professor was right. All my life, professors, I was taught to respect your authority. So I thought they were right. And I say unfortunately, but fortunately, unfortunately, I transferred to another school in Miami, Florida International University. But I always kept in the back of my mind all these years. So that was 2001. 2022, I'm gonna graduate my PhD, but every time I wanted to give up, I always had that in the back of my mind. I'm not giving up because of what she told me. I'm qualified. I'm not unqualified. And so, there was many times with my PhD, I was just not ready to. I was ready to quit, and so, but she gave me the determination and drive to keep going. So that's what I mean by it was sad, but it was also a good moment because it helped me to persevere and be persistent. So after that, I went to Florida International. My second passion, which I don't know if you remember, was political science, and so I wanted to be a politician, and so I went to political science, and I got involved on campus as in my residence hall or my dormitory. I got involved in student government, got involved in all these different things, fraternity life, so on and so forth. So I was really involved on campus. People knew who I was. And so after FIU, I was at a moment where I could be a lobbyist in DC and I could work as a politician. And I was like, should I do that? But then I had a mentor who was at FIU, and she said, I think you'd be really good in higher ed, student affairs, so on and so forth, student services. I said, what is that? I really didn't know what it was. And so I took a chance, honestly. That's all I could say. I took a chance, and I said I would do it. And to make a long story short, I then continued on FIU with my master's, and then I got my, then I went from there to Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, to work there. Then I went to Oregon State. Then I went to University of Central Florida, and then I went to where I'm at now, Louisiana State. But I also teach here at Southern University too in Baton Rouge, which is a historic Black college and university. So I've had many experiences with predominantly white institutions, minority serving institutions, historically Black institutions, and obviously FIU being a Hispanic serving institution. So, so I think, the my higher being, God told me that uh, He didn't want me to be in mediology because He had something else set for me, and I believe it's an education, and I love what I do. I love giving back to students like you do, like you invested into me. I like to invest into others, and so I'm very passionate about what I do, especially Black and brown students, especially Black men,
Yes.
because as we talked about earlier, I didn't have my father growing up much, and going to school, I didn't have many Black professors or teachers, and so, like you said before, I don't think I see my first Black professor until college. I'm trying to think any other time. I don't think so, but since I'm college, and so um, I want to give opportunities for other Black men to say, "Hey, I do see someone that looks like me in the classroom," and so that's why I'm so passionate about teaching, because I want others to be able um, to get knowledge and information. I think knowledge is power, and so
Yes.
um, and I also think too that education is powerful, in my research, that um, there's nothing more important than your education. Education will put you into another socioeconomic status, and so it'll put you up to that next level of economic equity. Get you closer to economic equity with others.
Yeah.
And so I'm very passionate about that kind of work. Yeah.
Oh, that is so good. And folks, I neglected to formally introduce Dr. Soares because I was just so excited to have one of my students here. So let me just read a little bit about who he is. So he is a recent graduate of LSU, Louisiana State University, in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He will have officially May 20th, when he walks across the stage, he will have his PhD in educational leadership with the research concentration in the Higher Education Administration program. He also has a Master of Arts, as he told us, in applied research measurement and evaluation. He has published and co-authored research geared towards minority students. Dr. Soares has over 15 years of college experience at an array of institutions. As he told us, he is currently an adjunct instructor at Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. His life's work is to prepare today's students as leaders to lead tomorrow. That is, I don't know. I'm just like sitting here fangirl, and I'm just like so happy. And I just want to show everybody this is his I was fortunate enough to get one of the copies of his announcement for his graduation. So this will go into my album with all my kids, because once my kid, always my kid. It doesn't matter how old you are, you always be one of my kids. So as you started doing this work, it was interesting hearing you tell that story of what happened in Vermont. And I actually think that was Linden State, because if I remember, that was the school up in Vermont. I'm just going to call them out. I don't even know
I
if they're
didn't want to do that, but you can do that.
I'm just going to call them out and tell them like it is. But it's so ironic how students, these stories, having people, educators tell you what you can't do. People that know me know my story of when I was in the 8th grade and we had to write a research paper on a future career. And mine was about, I wanted to be a teacher because that's what I wanted to do. And my school counselor, who gave me an A+ on the paper, then said to me in our conversation that I should be like Mrs. Varela, who was the school secretary. And he said, because my people didn't go to college. I'm like, what? Are you serious? And 13 years old, being told that. And just like with that professor telling you that, that stayed with me all those times. And I remember those days when I would have a history class, 8 o'clock in the morning. Most of my classes were in the morning anyway. And I just, said, oh my God, why did I take an 8 o'clock class? But I did not miss those classes because he was always in my ear all the way through my master's program and also through my doctorate program. You You just keep that out there, and you want to make sure that no other kids hear that message, or if they do,
Yes.
you
Yes.
can help them break down those barriers.
And that's so important, Dr. Wilkerson, because that's what my life work is now. I work with a lot of marginalized populations, from LSU, from Southern, and so many other. I mentor a lot too. And one thing I tell students that I work with is, don't let no one define your destiny. Only you can do that.
Mm.
No one can tell your trajectory where you're going to go. Only you can do that. They might help influence you or lead you to your path, but they can't tell you where you're going to go. And so, I'm very passionate about that because, um, I don't know, things happen for a reason in life,
Mhm.
but I don't know if she knew what she was going to get herself into telling me that, because, it spurred something inside of me that still lives within inside of me to this day. And so I really push students to think like that. If you want to be in STEM, you be in STEM, especially
Mhm.
Black. I talk about minority females, Black females. There's not a
Yes.
lot of, Black females in STEM, but you can do it. And so, I do a STEM camp in the summertime, to kind of
Oh,
help,
okay.
in Baton Rouge, with the 100 Black men. I kind of work with them on that to do so. And so, um, I really just want students to just see themselves to be who they want to be. So,
Oh,
yeah.
that is those words are music to my ears. So we have with us a guest, Jay Averill. Yes, I haven't seen you in a bit, Jay. Thank you so much for joining in. I'm so thrilled that you were able to join in tonight because, as I said, I love when I have the opportunity to have these conversations with students that I had when they were in high school. Oh, so I mean, and for me, like, I was laughing when you said, "Oh, I'm old." No, I'm older, but I'm more seasoned. That's how
That's
I'm
what I was
gonna
going to
put
say.
it.
More seasoned. Don't say
I'm
old,
more
say seasoned.
seasoned, yes,
Yes.
because I refuse to let age define what I'm going to do. This is my life's work, just like yours, and we'll continue to do it
Yes.
until the brain isn't there anymore to do it anymore. So, Franklin, tell me about, so when you were working on your bachelor's degree,
Mhm.
what type of activities were you involved in? Like what kind of clubs, internships, research, any of that type of items?
Yeah. So again, I was a first generation student trying to get myself kind of in my hands to everything. So I started off as a desk assistant. I had work study, which hopefully most of your listeners know what that is. So I had work study, and I was listening. I'm sorry, I was working as a desk assistant for one of the front desks in the residence hall. And then from there, I became a resident assistant, a part of hall council. And then I kind of moved up from there to student government. And I actually had the opportunity to create a Black men's leadership group on campus at FIU called MAILS, Men Achieving Leadership, Excellence, and Success. Actually, it started from Eastern Connecticut State University in Connecticut. And so I was honored to work with Mr. Kelvin Harris, who's my mentor, with that there as well. And I mean, like I said, then fraternity life came about, and I mean, I was very involved. Like I said, humbly telling you this, but
Mm,
I was even in I was in trio, and so
okay.
when I was in I don't know if you knew this, but when I was in East Providence High, I was in Education Talents as ETS,
Yes.
and so I want to give back. And I said, it's now my turn to give back to those who gave to me. And so I became a mentor and tutor for those in
Okay.
at FIU and Upper Bound and ETS. And and one other thing is I also am very passionate about mentoring. And so became a part of at my young age, I became a part of Big Brothers Big Sisters, because I felt like I didn't
Mm,
want no one to go through what I went through where they didn't have a father figure in their life. And so I thought that was my life's work as well. God put that inside of me to help others, and to especially Black boys and youth. If I can give them something that they can do to keep them persevering from elementary, middle school, high school to college,
mhm.
then I've done my work. So yeah. So
Oh
I
my
saw
goodness.
everything involved. Yeah.
I am just, I love this because we just need more people, Black and brown people doing this work, because I don't think we can wait for others to do it for us to bring our kids to where we need them to be. So, folks that are just joining in, I want to introduce you to Dr. Franklin Soares. He officially will have his graduation on May 20th. He just recently earned his PhD from LSU. And he is a former student of mine from East Providence, Rhode Island. And he has continued to take lessons that he has learned throughout throughout his career, throughout his college career, throughout his volunteer and his service, and he continues to put it into work. His main goal is to continue working with young folks, especially in these areas that we see here. He's been doing work in researching minority mental health, looking at mentoring, looking at college access, and looking at persistence. So, Dr. Soares, can you tell us a little bit about some of the research that you've been looking at around minority mental health?
Yeah, so I actually did a couple papers in regards to minority mental health. I did a comparison study between HBCUs and predominantly white institutions and historically black college. I should say historically black college universities. For those who don't know, and a comparison study, and I looked at how does administration and counseling centers perceive their mental health resources on the campus for Black students. It was a really good piece that I did that I'm looking forward to actually publish. I need to fine tune a couple of things, but looking to do some more work on that. Recently, I had an opportunity to work with Active Minds. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Dr. Wilkerson with Active Minds, but it's a national organization that looks at mental health. And one of the things they're looking at is to do more conversation and education for historically Black college and university. As you know, Black people, we don't like to talk about mental health. It's taboo, it's a stigma. It's as I called, there's a theory called coupos, especially Black men. And and we want to mask, we want to say we're good on the outside, but internally we're not so good. And so one of the things I do is I want to not just walk the walk, but talk the talk, or talk the talk, just walk the walk. And so one of the things I've done is in every institution I've worked in, I've been really instrumental in trying to create spaces for Black men, Black barbershops, talks on the
Yes.
campuses. And at LSU, it's one of the great things that students love. We just had it 2 months ago, and I did at Oregon State. I did at Morehouse, and I did at University of Central Florida, and I presented at national conferences about it. And I think we have to meet the students where they're at when it comes to minority mental health, and not minority, just all mental health. I think it's in white, Latinx, Asian American, Asian students, Pacific Islanders, Indigenous and Native American, Black and African American. So, and it goes on forever. But I think all students we need to stop that in society calling it, taboo or such, but definitely the Black community. And I know it goes with Tuskegee, we'll trace it back to Tuskegee and that whole issue, the experiment. And we'll talk about we don't have the access to medical and needs, and resources. In Baton Rouge, for instance, North Baton, I live in South Baton Rouge where LSU is very well off. But when you get to North Baton Rouge, it's a food desert,
Oh,
and then we have many food deserts, and we need to do a better job as a society with giving resources to people. And in my dissertation, I talk about this, and I talk about Black students and what factors help them persist through college after they're in a white institution. You might ask me, well, are you going to do are you going to do HBCUs and other schools? Yes, I do look forward to that in the
yeah.
future, but for now, I did predominantly white institution, and I looked at social economic stats. I looked at demographics. I looked at pre and post academic college factors when they get admitted, and it was really groundbreaking information. as the literature shows, socioeconomic stats with parents' income is gonna either help you or not help you, and
Right.
that's just that, and it's shows. Another item, real quick, is I'm trying to think real quick, is ACT score. So
Mm.
if you have the resources due on your ACT and SAT score, you're more likely to persist. But we know that if students don't have the resources to even take the ACT score or make it equitable, then they're not going to be able to do well on these exams. I'm glad to see many college universities are going away from the standardized
Yeah.
testing, because
Yes.
I don't think it's a good a mechanism that's in place. Um, I look at other things too in my dissertation, but so I'm very passionate about this. I think that as Black people, Black and brown people, I think we're resilient. Um, I think slavery tells us that we're resilient. I think we go, and I talk about this in my dissertation too, but we come with uh, pre-structural factors, right? Such as I call it baggage, quotation
Mm.
baggage, but violence from our home. My cousin died when I was young, of gun violence in New England. Um, you know, um, homelessness. I just talked about food insecurity, medical insecurity, where we don't have access to medical needs. Mental health needs. As Black people, we don't have a lot of these resources. And so if we don't have it, how are we gonna know what to do? Like myself, when I went to college, I remember my mom. It wasn't her fault, but she didn't know what to do. She said, "You're gonna take a Greyhound bus and you're gonna go from Rhode Island to Vermont." And she said, "You're gonna, and that's how you're gonna. And then I'll see you during the break." I had to figure out. I was working at McDonald's there. You know what I mean? I didn't know
Mm.
no one. When I got there, all I had was a pillow and a bag, and that was it. And that's how I had to do. And so, I think so many students go through that, and they just need someone to support them. I talk about in my dissertation, and you might be familiar with this. Terrell Strayhorn, Dr. Strayhorn, he talks about sense of belonging,
Mm-hmm.
and also too we talk about and when a student feels welcome and feels engaged into the community, they're going to be more willing to succeed and persist in that community. And so I think that's very important too, that we make a sense of belonging, not just for college and universities, but other spaces too, for K through 12, other places that we're a part of. I think that if we start doing that, not just only that, but if we have empathy and we start making places welcoming and supporting each other, I think we'll be able to do so.
Oh my goodness, you have just said a mouthful. I mean, I'm listening to this and I'm thinking of my experience. I mean, I was a first generation college student. My mother had no idea what that meant. I was fortunate that my junior and senior high school counselors took me under their wing and made sure that I dotted every I and crossed every T. But then you get on campus
Yeah.
and it's like, now what do I do? It's not the 13th grade. It's totally different. And just like you, I remember freshman year having a professor who was absolutely astounded that a person who graduated from Central High School in Providence could string together two sentences. And I remember how much I used to dread going to that class. And it was a required freshman class. And, of course, I was going to go to class. I dreaded going to that class because he would always say, "Wow, and look at Miss Williams over here." That was my main name. "Look at Miss Williams over here. She can write and she went to Central High School." I'm like, "Are you serious?" And I remember thinking, if you wanted to learn, you learned. If you didn't, you didn't. But I remember thinking first semester, freshman year of college, and that's how a professor reacted to you. So I hear so much, and I love the research that you're doing. I love that we're looking into all of these issues because it's not one thing. It's not one thing. I know one of my colleagues that lives here in Fayetteville is working very hard around Black maternal health
Hmm.
because that is a huge issue. And I don't think people understand the depth and the breadth of the issues that are still affecting Black and Brown families. I mean, when you talk about being in a food desert, I mean, there's a neighborhood in here in Fayetteville where they're in a food desert.
Yeah.
And when you're not able to buy fresh produce, now that affects your health because now you're going to buy what's convenient. And if you go to one of these convenience stores, they're not selling fresh fruits and
Right.
vegetables.
Yeah.
They're selling highly processed, highly sugared foods,
Yeah.
which then leads to other health issues. And it becomes like, a dog chasing your tail. You're just going
Right.
round and round trying to figure out, okay, what
Yeah.
do I do first? What do I do next? So I love that you did that. So tell me a little bit about some of the mentors. You did mention a couple of mentors, but tell us about the importance of mentors in your life along the way.
Yeah. So I'm really big on building relationships with people, as you probably already know. So I love to network. I love to build relationships, like I said. The funny thing is, I went to San Diego last week for a conference, an education conference, and I met the person who at FIU told me about Greek life. He was there in California. He said, "Let's meet up." And I haven't seen this gentleman in over 15 years, about 10 to 15 years. And so we had lunch together. He showed me the campus that he's on, and it was like it was great because when I was on campus, I didn't know left from right, and this is FIU. Um, and so so he I would consider him a mentor, because he helped me guide me through the good things and the bad things. um I've had I talk about Kelvin Harris, and I haven't told you this yet. I don't know if we're getting into this, but I work for United Negro College Fund as well right now in DC.
Yes.
So I work with him, and we work with historically Black colleges and universities. We work with all kinds of students to make sure they get the support they need. He has been instrumental. Actually, the males program I was telling you about, he brought it to FIU, and that's how we met, actually. And we have not stopped since then. We've been going like a machine, kind of changing the world. And so, through my life, and I've had, like yourself and others who have been, I have what, and I actually not just say all Black. I don't want people to think it's just Black and brown, but I have white mentors as well,
Yes.
who've helped me
Hmm.
through the process. Um, I think of, Dr. Larry Lunsford, Kathy Akins, Dr. Akins, and so many people, um, you know, um, but these people have been instrumental to me. They given me guidance, advice. When I was down and out, I remember one time I was in Oregon, and I was like, this is just not for me. Again, I was one of the few. I don't know what it is about me, but I'm always one of the few on the campus who's Black and brown. But I remember Dr. Larry Roper, and to this day, I mean, I thank him. He's got an invitation as well, and he always said, "You can do it." Like you've given, to me support and advice, and said, "You can do it. We need you. It's not over. We need you." And he supported me, so I'm big on support. You know, I like to support others, but as you know, I think of the jelly beans metaphor. People are gonna take out of my jelly bean jar, but I need people to put back in it too. I need to put back in it. So I'm gonna help others taking out, but I need people to put back in it myself. And so I had to learn that. Morehouse College, you talk about mentoring, but I learned very quickly about adulting. I was 24 coming out of my master's program, and I had young men who were 18 to 19 and 22 who didn't have paternal figures in their life. And so they looked at me as a father figure, paternal figure, of uncle, a big brother. And so, you know, and so I had to help them. I had to learn how to mentor them and support them. And I don't have any kids, but I had to learn very quickly how to, support them as what they needed. And so it's like it's reciprocated.
Yeah.
I was taught how to do it, and I give to that. And I always feel like God put me on this earth to give to others. And so what I would say every day, if I can be a beacon of light for someone every day, then I've done my job. And so if I can touch one person and say, you
Mhm.
know, I changed you or did something, then I've done my job for that day. And so that's what my goal is of life, as you talked about earlier.
That is so true. One of our listeners, Deborah Franklin, is sharing this with us. Deb is saying that, she remembers being so stressed out, but she didn't want to worry her parents. So she found a Black church in a prayer service. She didn't know that church, that they had prayer service on Wednesdays, but she went in, sat in the back, opened her mouth to say that all she said was that, she was a student at that school. She didn't want to come to the front, but she just walked out of there and was never discouraged again. Just, finding that support, finding that encouragement wherever you can. You know what they say, one of the things I love at the National African American Museum is they have posted throughout the different floors, making a way out of no way. And unfortunately, we're experts at that because we've had to be. Deborah, thank you so much for letting us know. I really appreciate you.
Thanks for being vulnerable.
Yeah, because that takes a lot to, we all have, as you were saying, Dr. Soares, we all have those stigmas about mental health because it's in our culture. It's in our culture, but it's so important that we're able to have those conversations, that we're able to find those mentors, having someone to talk to. And like you said, it doesn't always have to be a Black or brown mentor, but it's really nice when you have the opportunity to talk to somebody who has had a similar lived experience.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, that's why I talked about me being a researcher or faculty member, because many schools, especially primary one institutions, don't have Black and brown faculty members. They have less than maybe 1%, 2%. And I mean, and we have 13, most schools are like in those single digits to like low teens with numbers. And so these students are looking for people that look like them. And, like Miss Deborah said, that's very important. We just need somewhere to belong to, a church. That's why I said you need a sense of belonging. And she found the church, my pastor yesterday, I was talking, and she was talking about imposter syndrome. I don't know if you ever heard that before. And that's big, and stereotype threat. And it sounds like a lot of us go through that, where what you talked about, Dr. Wilkerson, when it was, you said your professor was telling you, oh, you can write. Well, yes, I can write. You know what I mean? You're not, like you're a certain way and things like that. Like, that's how you're supposed to be. Yes, I'm smart. I got here for a reason, and just so, I just get irked when I hear those kind of things. But I'm glad that Miss Deborah found her place and she passed. That's the biggest thing, persistence. If we just had resources, we'd be able to persist, and that goes with K through 12 too, and so
that is so true. Let me get back out here on the screen. It's so true, because I don't think people sometimes, if you haven't lived it, you don't know that it's a part of life. And even in my 6th decade, there are times where I'm in situations where I walk in, and just like you, I'll say, okay, I'm the only Black or brown face in here. And you really have to take the pulse of the environment. You have to decide, is this a place where I can feel like I belong, or is this a place where I'm here but I'm not here, or you can sit at the table, or do I have to pull up my own chair? It's one of those things. So again, having those mentors, and I'm always telling my students that you have people all around you who could be your mentors if you allow them to be. Because mentoring is a two-way street. I know when I mentor someone, I always learn from my mentees. Always learn from them. So it's not just me pouring into them. They also pour into me. And that's so, so important for all of us. You talked a little bit about, some of the other issues around college access. College access is such a huge issue for students. So talk to me around you talked about some of the specific programs that you've worked on around college access. What else would you like to see happen with college access? So first of all, talk a little bit about the work that you're doing at the United Negro College Fund.
Sure. So I work for 9 months now at United Negro College Fund in Washington, D.C. working as a senior relationship manager, and helping students to persist and matriculate at HBCUs. And so I work with the Target Scholars, Target Corporation, that has given a scholarship funding and resources to these students. And just it's 1,000 students that we work with, and we're there to support them. And so I do a lot of research. I do a lot of support with them. Things that we're talking about, like today. Who do I go to if I'm dealing with financial aid, or I need assistance with writing my paper, or my parent is really sick. Who do I go to about that? So there's conversations that they don't even know about. They're kind of working on their own. And if it wasn't for United Negro College Fund and resources like that, and these colleges, they wouldn't be able to navigate the system as we talked about before. And I think that's really a big item. When I talk about college access, I think one of the things we can do is we have to make it more equitable. More equitable for all students. I talk about, when I say equitable, as I said, ACT and SAT needs to be equitable. Maybe taking that out, like we talked about before. Affirmative action is a big thing right now, right? In the courts, the Supreme Court, and so on and so forth. But I would say to people, especially college admissions, is what are we doing to make sure that we're not looking at the color of person's skin, but we're looking at what they have. And I looked at, when I did my dissertation, I looked at zip codes of individuals that came, and seeing if that has anything to do with, and it does, and so we have to. The government, I think that really the government has to give funding to these places that don't have the funding. Another thing I can think about is, I know it's a big topic, but student loan debt. I think if a lot of people, and if student loan debt will make people pay for the rest of life until they die, and their grand generations will pay after them. But I think if the government can forgive student loan debt to to people, especially people of color, because people of color are the most impacted, and it's in my dissertation, the most impacted by student loan debt.
Yes.
I think the person's name, and I'll get it to you, is Jackson. I think the researcher's name Jackson from Florida State. But he talks about it, and he talks about student loan debt with Black individuals. And so if they can forgive, I think it will make us so much more better after coming out of college. But sometimes that's the only way we can get through college is student loan. We get the Pell Grant, we got all these other things, and then there's the PLUS loan, but parents can't apply for it because their credit's not good, or whatever the case is. And so I think I also look at two high schools like East Providence High. I look at schools, and I looked at where these students coming from, not just zip code, but are they understaffed? What kind of resources that high school's giving them? What kind of resources are coming from? Are they prepared for college? That's another thing that we have to talk about. As I teach classes at Southern and LSU and other places, a lot of students are not prepared, unfortunately, and it's not their fault; it's the system's fault, And so, what can we do to help that? We get $1 billion a year to these education, and nothing's working. Louisiana, for instance, we have the magnet charter school program system. They're not going to get rid of that. What can we do to have best practices? And I know we can't cookie cut one into everything, right? Every school system's going to have their own thing, but that's very important. And we talk about CRT. They're taking all these books away. I know we're going to talk about books in a minute, but they're taking all these books away that students can't read. And I would say if we don't change our thinking, we're bound to repeat the way it was before. And so, and so I think that we're at a very turbulent time right now where our government and governments, state, local governments, and federal, is taking away our history.
Yeah.
History is very important. Um, and not just Black history, but Native American, Indigenous, Latinx,
Awesome.
Asian.
Yes.
When the United States was founded, it was by immigrants. It wasn't the only people who lived on this land was Indigenous Native Americans. So if anyone should be upset, it should be them. And
Right.
so, um, we were brought as slaves as Black and African Americans. You have the Native, I'm sorry, the Asian and Pacific Islanders and all those who were brought here. But this wasn't no one's land other than the Native American Indigenous. And so, um, I think, and I'm not saying we need to get money back. That's a whole nother discussion for another day. But I mean,
Yes.
we just need to be more equitable, and more supported. So, I don't know what that looks like. That's a question for reform policy and everything. We'll talk another day
Yeah.
about that. But I think it's a little bit what we can do. Just help students to succeed. I was blessed to have, even though I was unprepared. One of the things I can tell you that helped me was TRIO, Education Talent
Yes.
Search. That really got me in the right path. I think if it wasn't for that, I would have been well behind the curve of my other colleagues and peers.
I think it's so I love that you're talking about TRIO and the and the support that they gave you. One of the things that I've been fortunate to, I was actually an upward bound counselor um, the summer between my junior year and my senior year in high school. So I was an upward bound counselor at Rhode Island College. And
Mm,
then when I was the counselor at East Providence High School, I was the liaison with the ETS program, the Educational Talent Search Program. So I always had an affinity for those groups because I
yeah,
saw what they were doing. When I moved here, I was fortunate enough to be able to actually get involved with Fayetteville State University's Upward Bound and TRIO program and their Gear Up program, which is
mhm,
the middle school version of
yeah,
Upward Bound. So I've been really appreciative of being able to be involved with them and also seeing the work that they do and how much they're trying to fill those gaps for students
yeah.
so that when they go on to higher education, um, they're going in within a more equitable position than when they came into the program.
Yeah, and I also, you just reminded me, I'm a part of 100 Black Men, as I said earlier, of Metro Baton Rouge, and I'm also in a fraternity. But I think a lot of fraternities and sororities, especially Black ones,
Yes.
um, I think they can do a lot more. I know they give scholarships, they have their foundations. I'm not saying they're not doing anything, but I think they could do more. I know the 100, what we do down here is we have a program called Project Cell. I'm not trying to promote it, but I'm trying to say is that
So
from middle
what's it called again? Project
Project Excel.
Excel. Okay.
Yep, and it's in 100 Black Men of Metro Baton Rouge, and what we do is we help to show Black men that that they can to give them the tools and the things they need to succeed until they get to college and even throughout college. So um, Project Cell, I call a product, and I think the president Adam said a good thing about it. It's like a 360 cycle, the 100. So we have the mentoring program, which is that part, which we kind of get them into college, right? And then in college, we have the Collegiate 100, which is kind of like an organization that helps the students while they're in college. And then you have the 100 Black Men, which is kind of like the finishing the cycle. So those are the adults, and so it kind of works together, right? And so um, and we do so much work. I know just a couple months ago, I did a presentation for the mentees, and we have about 85 mentees in the
Okay.
program. Um, and these mentees are coming from all kind of foster care. They're coming from single parent home. They're coming from elite, underserved areas. They're coming from really good areas, all
Mhm.
throughout Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Not just Baton Rouge, but the adjacent areas, two parishes, but they're coming through, and we teach them all kind of things, how to prepare yourself for college. We have students that go to Southern and go out of state, but also go in state, LSU, so on and so forth. But we want to make sure that these students are mentored, are supported with the right resources. And I think, and I go back to my original statement, if we can have more Black and brown organizations, nonprofits do that work, we can succeed. If we all just come together, we can make it
Mhm.
happen. I think so many times we want to, and I don't know if it's us, but we want to divide and conquer each other. Oh, I'm better than you, or I have more. But if we just come as one, I think we can we can really support our young people and the youth in our communities.
Yeah, one of my absolutely favorite I wouldn't call her a radio personality. Well, I guess so. She's a radio journalist, Karen Hunter, who was on Urban View Radio. She and on her daily show Monday through Friday on Sirius XM from 3 to 6, she talks so much about the collective power that we have
Yes.
to do things. I mean, one of the things that she has done that has me so excited. She started her own social media platform that actually is a subscription platform, and it's called Narrative with the K. And another part of Narrative is Nubia. And in there, every Saturday there is oh my God, anywhere it's usually at least 2 hours, but a segment with Dr. Greg Carr, who is a professor at Howard University, and he discusses current Black issues. It is amazing. One of the other things they have been doing, and it's probably actually happening right now, and that's why I never get there live. Um, they have started doing a book club.
Mm.
So they will pick a book. So right now, I think they're doing Barracoon, which is a book of Zora Neale Hurston's, and they're doing a book club. And I think the other week they had 1,300 people online participating in this book club. So watching what Professor Hunter has done with this platform just validates what you just said about
Mm.
we have the power.
Yeah.
We have the power. We just have to recognize it and use it. And one of the things she always says is if the people in Tulsa, Oklahoma, if the people in
Mhm.
Greenwood
Yeah.
could come out of an enslaved position
Yeah.
and create what they did in Greenwood back then, what is it? What's holding us back now? Is it just us? Or I mean, I know I'm not, I definitely know systemic racism is a huge piece of it.
Hmm.
But she's like, hey, yeah, it's there. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do differently? How are we going to pull ourselves together? We have another comment from Miss Franklin, and she just wants to say, that with this whole business of CRT and can't, this whole business about canceling school debt, um, people just don't want to see that it's a fight, and that it'll be
Yeah.
more effective if we just have those conversations about
Yeah.
it. So thank you, Deborah, for that.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
It's that's why I talk about politicians. It's hard right now because things that we want, it costs money and people don't want to waste, they want to spend money on what they want to spend their money on,
Mhm.
unfortunately. And so, but the funny thing about that, I want to go back to the point you said, this thing about the Jewish community. I was in Miami. How many Jewish people are in Miami and living in condos, having businesses and things like that? I thought to myself, I said, Dr. Wilkerson, I said, imagine if Black people come together in Atlanta, for instance, DC, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Houston, Los Angeles, all these places come together. If we vote, right? And we don't have
Mhm.
to all vote for the same party, whatever we vote. Um, if we have businesses, Black owned businesses, how we can take over instead of going to the Walmarts and the Targets and all these different things. If we go to those kind of places, um, we really could do our own thing. I don't think we would be having areas of gentrification anymore. Where
Mhm.
things like that. I think, and I love what you said about about collective responsibility and collectivism. I think
Yeah.
that's what I was trying to say. If we just come together, I think we can conquer. But I think what Miss Deborah talked about is, I think the sometimes not all white, I can't say all white, but a lot of white people or privileged people want to take that away because they don't like to lose power. And when they lose power, they lose control. And I think that's another thing that we're dealing with too in society currently.
Yeah, that is so true. That is so true. So I always like to segue and talk about books. So before we talk about your books, I just I wasn't planning on doing a book this evening, but I started reading this book yesterday, folks, and I'm mesmerized, I'm in love. I am like so this is called Finding Me, and it's by Viola Davis. And I started reading this yesterday afternoon about 2 p.m. I am now on the last chapter, but as I was telling folks, what I've been doing, I've been listening to it on Audible and reading it. So to hear Viola in her own voice tell me her story. Now, I have to also talk about why this is special. Viola Davis is from Rhode Island. She grew up in Central Falls, and she's a graduate of Rhode Island College, my alma mater. And what I didn't know, Dr. Soares, while I was reading her book, she went to the TRIO program at Rhode Island College.
Oh,
She
wow.
talked about TRIO. She even went, so Rhode Island College has a program called the Preparatory Enrollment Program. I was a part of PEP. I went to college because of PEP. PEP actually, at the time I went in, if you were a student in PEP, they paid for everything. It was basically like a full scholarship. They even paid for books. It's changed a little bit now. And she talks about that she was also a student of PEP, of the Preparatory Enrollment Program at Rhode Island College. So reading her story, hearing her talk about Rhode Island, hearing her say Rhode Island, as she's narrating the book, just really, really, I don't know. So all my Rhode Islanders out there, you better get your copy of Finding Me, because it is so, so good. Because for those of us that know Rhode Island, and Central Falls, Central Falls is not the most affluent city in Rhode Island. It's very small, like 1 square mile, like really small. And just read her story. Just read her story. I want to share here a slide that's just going to show us a couple of the books that Dr. Soares has recommended. So, Dr. Soares, can you tell us a little bit about these 2 books?
Yeah, so I'll start with the first one, Black Men and Masculinity. Man, this sister's a bad sister, bell hooks. We real cool. And so actually a colleague of mine at LSU got me into it. He was writing his dissertation on it. Not on it, but used this book for his dissertation. And he said, you should read this. And I said, okay. And I've read it probably 2 or 3 times now. It is a good book. It really talks about the Black man in so many ways. It talks about the history of Black men and then it talks about how to look at a Black man, but also how Black men look at themselves and each other. It's a powerful book. If you want to learn more about the Black man, I read it, and obviously I'm a Black man, but I read it because I want to know not just about others. I want to know about myself. Why am I the way I am? Or why Black men, especially in college universities or places I'm at, why are they the way they are? So I can have more empathy and active listening and these different things to kind of help them. So that's the first book I would really recommend. And if you know anything about bell hooks,
yes,
like I said, she's a bad sister.
Yes, she is.
Yes,
She was.
a lot of her books I recommend, but this book
Yeah.
I really recommend for the discussion. And then How to Be Black. This is another great book, and it talks about how to be Black in today's society. Chapter by chapter by chapter. It's just fascinating. It just gives the historical perspective. Again, I love books that kind of help me to understand me as a person and where I am. I would say where I am. I'm a contextual person, so I want to know where I was before, but where I am now. And both of these books do that for me. And so I really highly recommend both of these books. Now, there's another book I recommend too. And it got me going with my mental health piece. I didn't say this, but 2017, October, I was in a really dark place and tried to commit suicide. And so that's where all my mental health piece came along.
Okay.
And why I say that to people is not to be sad, but this is my calling, is to do work for the minority mental health and do more research. And so I read a book when I was at a church in Atlanta, and the book was called "Why Do I Cry?" And I still have this book to this day. And I'll give you a snapshot of it. But it has stories of Black men and why do they cry. And for the first time, my mother had always taught me we don't talk to counselors, we don't go, we talk to God, things like that. But I felt for like the first time I can understand what other Black men are going through. I'm not alone in this process. I can cry. I'm not trying to hide my emotions. And so I think so many times men really hide their emotions, and in high school, even with you, Dr. Wilkerson, I was hiding my emotions. I was trying to be a tough guy. I'm going back to those days back then, but I was trying to be smart, but I was trying to also hit fit in the crowd. Um, and so there was a lot of emotions I was holding back at that time. And then going through, like you said, Linden State with those emotions, and then going through my trajectory of now going through this. I've been through a lot. And so I really think that book helped me so much. It's a quick read, but the
Okay.
stories are powerful. And so, um, so I really appreciate you sharing those books with the
Yeah.
audience.
And what I will make sure I do in our show notes is to make sure I have the titles of those books in there along with the authors. And I strongly recommend, I'm a big proponent of buying from Black businesses when possible. So, one of my favorite places to buy books from, and that's actually where I bought Miss Davis's book from, is Mahogany Books. Mahogany Books is a bookstore that is located in DC, but you can also order books online, and that is my favorite bookstore to buy books from. So we actually have another comment here from Deborah. So I'm not sure which doc this is for. What can Black females do for our Black men today?
I don't know if that's for you or for me. What do you want to take?
I don't know. So I was trying to think. I said, "Gee, what can we do?" I always I always go the educational route. So for me, I'm always, because when parents say to me, "What can I do? My child's young. They're not ready for college yet. What can I do?" And my thing is, some of this, what we've been talking about, helping people understand education and what have you, is we have to start early. We have to start early with our babies when they're babies, introducing them to education, normalizing excellence, normalizing that from a very early age, so that they don't grow up to think, oh, yeah, I don't read. That's just for other people to do. I still hear sometimes, every now and then, too many high school students who are given a hard time by their colleagues or by their peers because they're doing well in school. And they'll
Mm,
say things like, "Oh, well, why are you acting white?" And I'm like, "Wait a minute.
yeah,
So acting white is the equivalent of being smart. So what is that? What does that mean if you're acting Black?" Like, I don't get that. So I
yeah,
always talk to kids about, you go out and you show your nerdiness 100%. 100%. Like, don't let, so it really has to start early, because we want to normalize that for students. We don't want a college going culture to be something that they find out about when they first step foot on a campus. Like me, first generation, you first generation, and the hundreds of thousands of other first generation students out there. So even as a parent, if you have not gone to college yourself, that doesn't mean you can't introduce your child to
that's right.
higher education in a developmentally appropriate way. We definitely can. Libraries are free. All you need is a library card. There is so much that you can learn in the library.
I would say also too, I think you did a great job, Dr. Wilkerson. I
Thank
think
you.
from my standpoint is one thing that I see, and you're gonna probably most likely agree with me with this, but one thing I see with college students, Black men, and also high school, because I mentor middle school and high school and elementary, is they're not being loved right now. They're not being loved. They're not. they're not being supported. Love your children. Love, and if you don't have children like me, love on someone else. Be the village for your community. What happened to that? Where we lived in the same community, and you be telling the next door neighbor, "Oh, I know what you're doing. Get back over here." You know what I mean? Not being everyone's business, but we're not doing that. We don't know each other's neighbor. We don't know the next door neighbor anymore. It's like, oh, hello, goodbye. You know, we're not having conversations like we used to. So I think love your children, love your love the black men.
Yes.
Um, and like I said before, I think the biggest thing is um that black men sometimes are not loved at home. And unfortunately, what you talk about, I talk about my dissertation in my research, is that black men, unfortunately, in like high school, are reprimanded because they don't know how to deal with their emotions, you know.
Yes.
And we have to put them in places where they can be supported with other black men, um, and be who they are, and I'm really big on, I'm thinking of Gabriel Union and what's his name, Dwayne
Dwayne
Wade,
Wade.
and
Yes.
how they support their child, And
Yes.
I think it's okay if your child is not who you want them to be. Still love them, still show empathy for them. Um, you know, um, just love them and be care. I think that's the biggest thing, and support them through their matriculation in their life.
Yeah.
I think the other thing too is listen. I think a lot of parents don't listen. A lot of black females, black females are warriors. My mom's a black, and I tell you're a warrior, and you're a warrior too. A lot of you are listening, are probably warriors. But listen, I think a lot of times people don't listen. And if you listen to what your child's saying, it goes along. I was talking to one of my colleagues who has a child, and she was like, "Oh, I didn't understand why he was doing this." And I said, "Why don't you just not listen? If you listen, you'll understand." And I wasn't ridiculing her. That's her child. But if we pause and listen, we can get so much out of that, much more. And so I would say love, support, and listen are my biggest things. And if you do those three things, black men with as black females, or even black men, I think black men can be black males can support black men too. I think I think you can really support black men in general. And so I don't think it's for black females. I think it's for everyone. What can we
Yeah.
do?
Yeah. I love what you said about listen. I always tell people the word listen and silent have the same letters.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, see.
Yes, same letter. So just be silent, listen to what your child is saying. Let them have a voice because if they don't learn to have that voice at home, how do they learn to have that voice when they go out in the world if that voice
Yes.
is always stifled? So again, think about that. I mean, there are so many things we could do differently, but I love what you said about it starts at home. Just love on your child. Just love on your child. That I mean, that is we
And
we we need to we need to address those basic needs.
And I just want to add two more things. You just got me going. My mind is like, ooh, it's a racing right now. But no, the other thing is, um, you said stifle. That is so important because when they go to these high school and middle schools, and then most of the time they're in predominantly white spaces,
Hmm.
they're stifled. Like you said, your teacher was like, oh, or the student was like in high school, oh, you can read or this and that. Like they get that all the time. And they're in places where they cannot be able to talk,
Hmm.
So if they're silent, just say, hey, what's going on? And if you can't get to them, my mom couldn't get to me. She said to my cousin, who's a male, can you get to him? And that worked. Try to find someone, there's someone out there that can get to the black man. The other thing is I would say to my students and to people, God gave us two ears and one mouth for a reason. And
Hmm.
use that, listen and then speak, because
Yeah,
guess what? You might not know something that they're telling you that can be mind blowing, and
exactly.
so when you listen, you have someone else's perspective. And I think too much in the black community, and we tend to interrupt one another and not listen. And I think we need to, and it's not anything, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but we just need to do that more often, practice that.
Yeah, I agree with you so much. Oh, Dr. Franklin Soares. Oh my goodness. I just love saying that. I absolutely love saying that. As I said earlier, for those that might just be watching this on the replay or tuning in, Franklin was a student of mine back at East Providence High School back in the day. So getting to see your students go from high school students to now getting ready to march and get his PhD on May 20th from LSU is this is the payback for teachers.
Yes.
This is what makes teaching, because we don't make a lot when you
Yeah.
teach,
Yeah.
but this is the payback. This is what's priceless. This is what's so valuable, is seeing the people that your kids, because as I said, once my kid, always my kid.
Mhm.
Getting to see them come into themselves. And I love what you're doing, giving back. So I thank you so much for the work you're doing. I thank you on behalf of all those students who are benefiting from the work you're doing, from the parents, and for our society, because when you're helping a student, you're helping society. You're just helping all of us. So I thank you so much for that, Dr. Soares.
Well, I thank you. And I say, and one thing I'll say to that is, if we want to, the founding fathers, I talked about this yesterday, actually. If the founding fathers wanted to life living in pursuit of happiness, in order to have a pursuit, everyone to be happy, we need to have for everyone to be happy, everyone needs to be thriving, right? We can't
Yes.
have people not thriving. If we have people not thriving, we're not going to have a happy community. And
Yeah.
so we definitely need to be thriving, and definitely, if we want to get to where our founding fathers wanted to, then we have to do so.
So true. So, folks, thank you so much for joining in. Jay, I appreciate you joining in. Deborah, I always appreciate you joining in and your thoughtful comments. For those people that might like to still stay in contact with Dr. Soares, this is his email and his work number, and you can certainly reach out to him if you'd like to know more about his research and the work he's doing and the projects that he's working on. Again, I will not be with you most likely the next 2 Mondays because of traveling to colleges and attending a conference. But if I am, I will definitely put it in the events. I just know that when we go on these tours and we go to these conferences, the days and nights are pretty full. And we don't have a lot of time. We don't have a lot of downtime. So we will see what happens. So again, Dr. Soares, hang on while I talk us out. Again, folks, I will see you hopefully in a couple of Mondays. Like I said, if not, who knows? Maybe I'll jump on there during the middle of the week or something. And it doesn't always have to be on a Monday. So, folks, college and career conversations where we help families eliminate random acts of college planning. So, if you have a young person that is in the middle of planning for college, 10th grade, 11th grade, and may have a few late seniors, reach out to me. Dr. B at Steps to the Future. You all know what my website is. Let me make sure that I put it up here for you so that you can see. You can always reach out to me. Here we go. Yep. Dr. B at Steps to the Future. Send me a quick email. Also, you can check if you missed this interview, you can also check out this interview and others on my YouTube channel. And please go and like my YouTube channel, subscribe to it. I'm trying to get my numbers up so that I can do a few more things with that channel. And if you're interested in the monthly newsletter, please subscribe to the monthly newsletter. And this is the URL for the monthly newsletter here. So if you want to subscribe and you want to hear more college information, this is free, doesn't cost you anything. So again, YouTube channel, you can see different interviews with Black and Brown career professionals and some other college information thrown in for you in addition to the newsletter. So thank you, everyone, and we will see you in a couple of weeks, if not sooner. Take care, everyone.